very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord, and my special guest is the chairman of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Mr. Edward Clarke. Mr. Clarke, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, let's take a look back before coming forward. We had 2 lockdowns over the past 18 months, and some businesses were closed during that time for extended periods of time. I want to look at the impact of the closures during that time.
Right. Well, the closures certainly had a very damaging effect on businesses in general in Barbados. Some have not even recovered yet, although they've been reopened now for quite a few months. The first closure was pretty devastating, as we all know. A lot of unemployment was created. We lost a lot of revenue in the business sector. And it really has never recovered, because since tourism has dropped off so much, it was about 95% during the closure that we have lost. And that has had a huge ripple effect across all business in Barbados, not just the tourism sector or food services sector, but all retail, distribution, and all related services sector. The reopening, then we had the closure again this year. No, that was like the last straw on the camel's back. And many businesses have continued to suffer as a result of that as well. Luckily, now we have seen tourism pick back up a bit. But prior to that, it was really hard for businesses. And certainly, the small businesses in general really felt it very badly. Large businesses felt it too, but they were able to sustain it because they're better capital base than the smaller businesses. But many small businesses have not recovered. And unfortunately, many have closed down and wouldn't be able to reopen, in my opinion.
And some, as you just said, some have not reopened.
That's correct.
How troubling was that for you?
It was very troubling. Anything that destroys a business in Barbados, it sort of gives people a lack of confidence to reinvest in the economy again. So any businesses that close, that means is one less employer in Barbados, one less opportunity to keep people employed, one less opportunity for a small business person to make it and to be able to expand and grow their businesses. And that is something that we have a lot of in Barbados. I don't think people in Barbados realize the large number of small businesses that are in operation. There are well over 7,500 small businesses in Barbados, employing thousands of people, 40,000 people approximately. And that's a significant number of people in the employment. That's almost 40%, well over 30% of the employment in Barbados created by small business. So when we start to lose small businesses, it is worrying. It continues to then affect larger businesses, the wholesale and distributive sector. It affects families as a whole. Many small businesses are very family-operated businesses, as you know. And when the whole family goes out of employment, it has a devastating effect on them, on their entire family, the wider family, and the few people they employ as well. So it is bothering, it is worrying, and we need to see some light at the end of the tunnel for some of these businesses to come back, whether they come back in a different form or not, because I don't think many businesses will come back in the same form that they fell down in. And I think we'll see some changes if they do come back.
The Prime Minister has gone on record as saying a third lockdown is not an option given the economic strain. You have also said a third lockdown would be beyond devastating.
Sure. Yes, and I seriously believe that another lockdown in this country, will take years to recover. Right now, we are going to take years to recover. I mean, we've lost almost 20% of our gross domestic product in Barbados, and that's going to take a long time to recover. And if we have another lockdown, I can't even foresee where we will be in 2, 3, 5 years' time. It is going to be that devastating. There will be huge unemployment. The government cannot continue to give unemployment benefits to people. Businesses, they cannot sustain the assistance that they've given other businesses. And let's face it, we are on the IMF program. The IMF program, the BERT program, has been very well received by the IMF. They've understood our position. But how long is too long? And how much more can we take as a country? And I think we need to be cognizant of that as a people, that closure of all businesses that are locked down in Barbados will have a very devastating effect that we will probably not recover from for the next 10 years.
Does the association appreciate the slowdown that we now have in terms of the restrictions at this time?
Yeah, I think we do understand the need for better control, better protocols. No, a lot of people say so. COVID doesn't happen in the day, it only happens at night. I know that's a general saying that you hear people in Barbados, but I do understand some of the rationale behind it. I think that we should we should try to be able to recover from it because it still does have a very negative impact on the food sector, the restaurant and entertainment sector in Barbados. And I would like to see that ease back in time. But I understand the government's position and their reasoning for it. I would like to see that us come out of that in the near future. But a lot of that depends, Lisa, on how people behave, how we as Barbadians react to protocols and react to what we are being asked to do by the authorities. And sadly to say, many people are still not reacting in a positive manner.
Has the association at all given any thought amongst your membership to us even increasing more restrictions?
In what way? What type of restrictions are you talking about?
In terms of, let's say, for instance, if we ever had to go back to an alphabet system, like we had in the past.
We would hate to see that come back in Barbados. I don't think there's any benefit of doing it. I think it has had a negative effect. It will have a worse impact on the opportunity for COVID to be spread, in my opinion. We still have way too many people unvaccinated, so we would end up with 70% of the people in the queues and so on not being vaccinated and being out there in the public, in crowded areas. So I don't support the alphabet system at this time. When it was done at the time, I did support it. I don't think that's something we should be doing now. I believe that we need to continue to manage our protocols that we have now, the masking, the sanitizing, wherever possible, the temperature checking, and the distancing. And ultimately, you know, my favorite topic, people must be vaccinated. And that is an area that I think we are certainly not where we need to be at this time.
Let's stick there for a moment, because you've been very vocal about that. The Private Sector Association is the umbrella body representing a number of organizations in various sectors, including the Barbados Employers Confederation.
That's right.
I'm still seeing on a daily basis memos being circulated on social media from employers stating that they still want their staff to be vaccinated or submit to testing frequently.
Correct.
However, government has said they're not going to mandate vaccinations. They think it is a matter of choice. Why is the private sector pushing mandatory vaccinations?
We still believe that certain people on the front line, especially our staff on the front line, should be vaccinated. In some businesses, certainly restaurant, food services sector, hotel and tourism sector, I believe that all people on those front lines should be vaccinated. And I think that has been our position from very early in the equation. Individual businesses have a right to do what they want to do within the law. They have a right to try and protect their fellow employees. They have a right to protect their customers. And that is the right of the individual business person. You can't force people to be vaccinated, but you said this is an opportunity for you to be vaccinated. We want you to be vaccinated. We're going to encourage you to be vaccinated. But at some time, Lisa, at some time in Barbados, people will have to be vaccinated if they want to work on the front line. I strongly believe that. I think we are coming to that at some time in our life, in the next few weeks or months, because we cannot continue where we are at this time in Barbados.
You said that you're not forcing. However, the language in some of these memos is very strong. Mm-hmm. And it comes across as though you're saying you have to be vaccinated if you want to keep this job.
Yeah.
So it is a little confusing in terms of what the employers are requesting from their staff.
Yeah.
At the same time, people are saying you're requesting your staff to be vaccinated. Will it reach a stage where your customers have to be vaccinated as well, or is it all about money?
I don't think it's about money, because for the staff being vaccinated, it doesn't bring any money into the business. I think it certainly would protect the businesses, would protect the other staff members in the business. It is, I believe, it's still a right of the employer to try and protect his staff and his clients coming into the compound, and to make it a safe place to do business. And, you know, as we said before, there's only one way to find out. The first entity that does it will be tested, I'm sure. So let it be tested. The opinion has been given already. We have agreed with government that we are not going to, at this time, mandate any position. People have already said, we're giving you a time to do it. But at some time in Barbados, it will have to happen, in my opinion. I do not think we are going to be at the numbers we need to be voluntarily if we continue at the pace we are doing at this time. And I expect that at some time the frontline workers in Barbados will need to be vaccinated and will have to be regulated.
And why I asked about the customers is because people have said that they would boycott these businesses that are mandating or asking their staff to become vaccinated.
Well, that's the right of every individual No, there's a right for every individual to boycott if they feel like, take their business elsewhere. It's a market-driven, a competitive-driven market. There's a free market system. So if a company has certain regulations, if there's a dress code, you want to wear slippers and shorts rather than jacket and shorts, or jacket and trousers, you can't come into place. If the business, you go somewhere else, you're going to spend your money somewhere else. It is the individual's right. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to boycott, boycott. But then when more and more businesses do it, what do you do?
Where do you shop?
Where do you shop? Where do you go? And that is something that I think will happen at some time. We have to look at the bigger picture, the long-term picture for this country. This country cannot afford a shutdown. We cannot afford to lose the green light of the UK system, of the UK market, or the European markets. We cannot afford for the US and Canada to blacklist us for travel purposes, or the airlines to stop coming here. We need to stay open as a country. We need to be able to protect our individuals, our employees, the general public in Barbados in the health situation. I heard the CMO say last night on TV, we're reaching a crisis stage with the special care facilities. And when he says that, I get very seriously affected, because any of us can take ill suddenly, and then we find out that we don't have a place to go. It is a cause for concern, and I don't think people realize how serious it is. The resources available, whether it is human resources or physical resources available to Barbadians when this continues to spread. And as you know, Lisa, it is continuing to spread. In the last week, we've had over 300 people or more in the last few days, just this week alone. And it's continuing to spread and increase, and it can't continue. We cannot manage that situation as a country. We are a small country. We don't have the resources, physical or human or dollar resources. We just cannot do it as a country.
Another concern is the spiraling cost of living. Yeah. And many are convinced that the private sector has to shoulder the majority of the blame for exorbitant prices across the board. How do you respond?
Well, the private sector in general, globally, obviously, is the cause for the increase. I mean, the suppliers, the procurement, we hardly produce anything in Barbados. The farmers' prices are going up from market to shops and to even in the market in Bridgetown. Everything is going up. But globally, the commodities have increased tremendously. The cost of freight from China and other markets has increased, substantially. Some containers from $2,500 to $10,000. That's 4 times in the cost. So you've got to expect the prices of the contents of that container to go up. We have been discussing with government, and we are also in discussion on the new prices and incomes protocol. And the merchants in Barbados, the business people in Barbados understand that cost of living is extremely high. It is not that they're ignorant of it or they're not paying any attention to it. We all understand. And they've absorbed a lot of the increased costs over the last year because of the situation in Barbados. But there's only so much absorption you can take. You have got to increase your prices to get a return on your investment. It is not just the local market that is driving the prices. There's increased freight, there's increased duty, there's increased VAT on imports. When I say increase, because of the dollar value, everything goes up, and then you make a return on that. So obviously the end product is going to be costlier. And we need to look to find ways as a country, whether it is with government and the private sector, but through the shippers and the suppliers as well. Unfortunately, we have little control as a small country over those things. We are a small market. We don't have the capacity, the economies of scale to control that globally. But we have to do better. We have to find ways to control the prices that come into Barbados. And to me, that is the biggest challenge we face as a country. The commodities have been going up and down, and sort of roller coaster in some cases. And that's something that we hope that will level off, because it's hard to plan as well. So one shipment comes in at this price, the next shipment is 30% higher. So the prices are all over the place right now. It is not a constant, The only thing that you see is some commodities may have dropped down, like lumber and so on, in the construction industry. But for how long? What has happened, Lisa, is generally speaking, a lot of people have not been able to produce at the level to supply the market post-COVID. And after the break of COVID in the UK, in the USA, and many other countries, there's a huge demand for products and a limited supply. Even in the US, it's very hard to find truckers to drive. And in Canada, a very short supply of truckers. In the UK, the same thing. So it's very hard for people to find people to do this work. And as a result, they have to pay extra, and the demand and supply chain is driving up the prices. And that's so throughout the world, whether it's a raw material, as a commodity, whether it's a manufactured item. Unfortunately, we manufacture and we import very many things. We produce very little here in Barbados. And we need to ensure that we can do some more productive work here, certainly in the farming community and the vegetable and food crop community, that we could try and control better. But as you've seen already recently, the prices of feed, the prices of raw materials, the prices of freight into the country for those things have gone up. So it's impacted them as well. So whatever we try to do, there've not been a lot of positives to help the end price or the customer, the end consumer. There've been a lot of negatives that the business people have had to deal with. They've absorbed some, but they can't continue to absorb forever. And I think we have heard that from many business houses in Barbados and many manufacturers as well.
Has the BPSA sat down with government to look at reviewing the import duty structure?
Yes, on certain commodities, yes. We have, as I said, there's a subcommittee of the social partnership that has been meeting with the government officials on that. And a paper is being produced now for the prices and incomes protocol, the revised one, for the next social partnership meeting to discuss. But we have had a subcommittee. Members of the private sector have been working on that with the other trade and labor and industry officials, government officials. So they are looking at opportunities, ways to control things, including fuel as well, the prices of fuel in Barbados as well.
And do you think that as a consequence of these high import duties and other factors, this is making it difficult for the merchants here to really compete?
Well, you can compete. You know, I mean, if you do a survey, you do your own survey as a shopper, you know, there are certain locations in Barbados that have more competitive prices than others. And that's what we encourage Barbadians to do. You know, competition drives pricing. It drives service and it drives pricing. Service is another matter we can discuss. But certainly competition in Barbados, pricing drives a lot of that as well. And prices are not consistent in many retail outlets, as you know, across Barbados. And I think the general consumer, the ultimate final consumer, needs to shop around, because competition will drive prices in all retailers. It is a matter of who can provide the service and price that a customer wants. And I think that you will see that being done a lot more. I encourage people in Barbados to go and shop in the markets in Bridgetown. I go down there every 2 weeks and shop. And I can come home with a lot more than I go if I go to a large supermarket in Barbados on a Saturday and buy my veggies and fruit. You know, I think people need to be willing to take the time. If you stop complaining, let's stop complaining. You know, we are a nation of complainers, really and truly. We don't like to act, we like to complain. So let us act. Let us put our feet behind where our mouth is. Let us go and walk around and drive around and go and get the prices that we really think are so beneficial in the end. And spread that word. And that's where market forces would drive competition and drive prices downwards.
Are you getting complaints still about price gouging?
Not as much. I think people have started to understand the global market, what is happening. We have heard some cases of it, you know, but I have not received complaints recently. I've heard about that, say, 3 months ago when there was a lot of complaints about price gouging. But I think generally things have been driven by external sources, and I think people have started to understand. But that doesn't mean that people are comfortable or are happy. So we, between the business sector and the government, we need to sit down and work together to see how we can manage it. You know, there's a basket of goods still that we have been working on with government, and we need to try and manage that basket of goods and ensure that the basic commodities that people need to live, we can provide at a reasonable market to the customer, a reasonable taxation, I think, for the government, and let us try and control those prices to the final consumer. But the other things, the other areas, you know, are the areas that we don't really have a lot of control over, you know. And that is something that we in the business sector are very worried, because we see the impact on people. We see how people are shopping a lot differently. People are consuming essentials more so than what they would like to have. You know, the shopping trolleys and the shopping carts and so on are not as full as they used to be, because let's face it, there's only so much money you have to spend. And it's not something we are happy about, you know, and we would like to be able to provide a much better level of pricing and a wider commodity base, competitive pricing for people. And I think many people out there are trying to find that at source if they can find a better pricing at source, work with the shipping companies and work with the government on the taxation side, we can try and find a better solution. But Lisa, sadly, the global market, the global commodities, we are not seeing that. I've just returned to the island, and I went to North America. I tell you, the prices up there have increased substantially in the supermarkets and so on. So it is not a Barbadian issue. It is a global issue. And everybody globally are complaining about the prices of the cost of living going up across the world.
Now, besides COVID and the high cost of doing business, what is the greatest challenge for the private sector in Barbados?
Growth. We have to grow this economy. Our job is to help grow this economy. Government is there to facilitate it, set the policies and regulations in place, provide a playing field as a level playing field, a competitive playing field for us. We need to find opportunities to grow this economy. Sadly, there are not many right now. We need to understand where we're going as a country, as a growth for the country itself. Pre-COVID, there was a lot of thought about a lot of heavy tourism investment, even medical tourism investment, other things like that, educational tourism investment. We have seen a sort of a stalling of that, a slowdown of that. We need to find ways to help grow this economy on the digital side, especially the services related side. I think we have to use our educational system a lot better to generate the services that are required globally. You only got to look around and see the 12-month stampers that moved to Barbados. Almost every single one of them, at least one of them, and sometimes two of them in that household are working on island, offshore, providing services offshore to their clients. We need to be able to do the same. We need to be able to compete in that market. So now it's not it's not a physical and a concrete structure that is selling. We need to be able to provide services to the global market and get known in that global market space. So we as a country need to be able to get that opportunity and go there. It is hard work. It is not something that you can easily get into. It's a big competitive area, as you would know, globally to try and compete on the digital side, on using technology. Technology is not cheap either. And many of us that are involved in investment in technology in our businesses can tell you that the cost of technology you would think would come down, but the amount of money you have to continue to spend is significant. So even for small businesses especially, you'll see small businesses being challenged by the cost of technology to improve the way to provide service. But I see the small business sector in Barbados, the younger people especially, I see a lot of new people coming into business, they have to drive the change. They're going to drive the change with the ideas and the innovation. And that's why I like when I see some of the younger business people coming up, small business people, I'm encouraged. I try to help them and give them business as well, because that's the future. Everybody doesn't start big. Very few businesses start out big, including Godwood Enterprises started out small. Sagicor started as a little small company as well, mutual at the time. But we all got to start small. And ultimately, it is the ideas and the innovation and the use of technology, I think, that will bring us into our true growth pattern globally.
And depending on what service or product you're offering, word of mouth references still go a long way. However, customer service is not where it's supposed to be on the island still.
I cannot. I wish I could say I disagree with you, but I have to agree with you. Customer service in Barbados is sadly lacking in general. It's hard for me to say that. But we really are not. We are a service-oriented economy, but not sadly to say, we are really not a service-oriented people to the level that we have to drive this economy. I would give you an example, though. NICE, when NICE was in operation, NICE did a good job. Did a nice job. Pun on words, but I thought NICE had done a lot of good things to improve the levels of customer service and the awareness of customer service. I know at my last company, we benefited a lot from hiring somebody from NICE. I know she did a fantastic job in our organization, converting and transitioning, transforming the way people do business, the way employees feel about a customer, and the caring and the empathy and the understanding. That's what you have to be to really provide a good level of service. And until that changes, it becomes work, not service. So we have to change the mentality from work to provide a level of service that exceeds the customer's expectations. And that needs a lot of training.
But we do invest quite a bit in training.
But you have to have the right people. We have to train people too from young. You can't take an old horse and try to a old dog and teach it new tricks overnight. You know, really and truly, we need to train our people from very young. And what service really is, you know, what it's all about. How is Barbados going to grow in the tourist industry without excellent service? We have to compete globally. It's all about competition again. It's about price and service. We can't compete with price in many cases. We got to compete with who we are. And all the positives you see written about Barbadians and the travel sites and so on is about who we are, the experience they've had from people. And I think it's important that we do more and more of that from very young in our lives and through the educational system, the importance of that as a people, because we are too small to not provide an excellent service to be able to thrive and grow this country. But things can change, I tell you. Barbados Immigration Department used to have the reputation as one of the worst places to go and do business. Now, you go to the Immigration Department in Bridgetown, it's one of the best experiences you can have. I've heard that from numerous people. I've told the members of the social partnership that recently. They need to be commended, and you have to ask why. Is it new leadership? Leadership makes a huge change. There are other government departments that the same should be done. Mm-hmm. You know, there are private businesses that the same needs to be done. This is not a government and private. This is all around the island. Leadership needs to understand that we need to make a change in how we provide service to customers. And the expectation level of customers is not where it used to be. People are expecting more and more and more because they're aware. The people are a lot more aware of what to expect. So we need to do better as a business sector and as government, all over the country, to do better.
Another one of your members is the Barbados Bankers Association. I know you cannot comment directly on what they're doing. However, the banks are taking a bruising with these exorbitant fees. Is your association having discussion with the bankers about these fees?
Members have had discussions with about the fees. And listen, I can see why. I mean, there's no doubt that some of the fees are very high, mm-hmm. and they need to be challenged. I'm not happy with fees that I have to pay as well. And I've raised that with my bank, you know, and I think that the Bankers Association, I've raised that with members of the Bankers Association as well. I don't think it's no secret. It's not a secret in Barbados that all business people are not happy with the fees that we are paying at this time. And all Barbadians are unhappy. And the banks need to be aware. I think between the central bank and the banks, they need to get together and understand the impact they're having on small people in Barbados, especially small businesses, and certainly on the average Barbadian. You know, I don't think it is fair that you should go to an ATM machine and you can't get less than a $50 bill in the ATM machine. They don't want you to come in the bank. So what do I have to do? Take my $50 now and go and beg a retail outlet to change that into, or go in the bank and do it myself. That doesn't make sense. And I think that the banks need to understand there's a need for change and meet the customers' expectations, which they're not meeting at this time.
Mr. Clarke, you spent many years in the insurance industry, mm-hmm. and a lot of things are changing. I'm seeing a lot of mergers and takeovers. Mm-hmm. Are you concerned, satisfied, happy with the level of competition in the insurance industry in Barbados at this time?
Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another against depression. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function. Remove outdoor objects. Make sure that you went to the ATM. Stock up with water. Make sure you clean the guttering, Lord. What about canned food? Make sure you got some stock up in your room. Make sure you prop up the paling and tie down the roof. Let me start to prepare real soon. Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another against depression. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function.
Vaccines have both protected and kept children healthy from serious illnesses such as whooping cough, measles, crippling diseases like polio, and others. Vaccines help your immune system to do its job better and faster, and that protects you from serious disease. Like a good security guard, the immune system is always on patrol in your body, looking for invading germs. When it comes across a germ, it begins releasing antibodies to fight that germ. These antibodies work to attack, weaken, and destroy the germ. The COVID-19 vaccine is no different. It will work to help your immune system fight COVID effectively. All vaccines go through strict trials before they are approved for use in the population. Even after the COVID-19 vaccines are approved for use in the general population, monitoring for safety continues. Vaccines are safe, and they work.
This message has been brought to you by the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and the Pan American Health Organization.
Mr. Clarke, you spent many years in the insurance industry, and a lot of things are changing. I'm seeing a lot of mergers and takeovers. Are you concerned, satisfied, happy with the level of competition in the insurance industry in Barbados at this time?
Yeah, I mean, there are not many life and health players. There are many private, the PNC type, property and casualty type businesses in Barbados. There are many brokers in Barbados and agencies in Barbados. I think that consolidation is good for the industry. The industry, in spite of what many people may think, has had a period of very bad performance over the last few years. And it's only recently that some businesses have done well. I think that people need to understand that certainly on the motor vehicle side of property and casualty type insurance, the accident ratio, the motor vehicle claim ratio in Barbados is ridiculously high. A lot of accidents caused by whatever means, we don't know. But certainly people in Barbados are driving too fast and too careless. There's no doubt about that, and not heeding the rules and regulations of the country. And that has driven up the insurance claims ratio in Barbados. The cost of motor vehicles in Barbados has not helped. The cost of repairing vehicles and parts in Barbados has not helped. So when you have claims ratios and so on exceedingly high, it drives up the cost of insurance. And unfortunately, although Peter might think he's paying for Paul, he really is not paying for Paul. He might pay some of it, but Paul is then going to pay a lot more. And those are the ones that you hear people complaining more and more about. The motor side. The property and casualty, the actual house insurance, I don't think it has increased significantly. That is driven more by reinsurance, because most of the property insurance in Barbados is reinsured offshore. Sadly, most of the reinsurance in the Caribbean is done with international firms, and it is all done in US dollars, and mainly US dollars, or certainly foreign currency. There are no local reinsurance companies in Barbados and in the region that would handle the level of reinsurance we need. We are hopeful that sometime that we can have a regional reinsurance entity where, within the CARICOM area, we can keep the currency in the region rather than have to pay for it, send our dollars or pounds or euros overseas. But reinsurance drives the cost of PNC, of the property and casualty business. But motor claims ratios are certainly one of the biggest drivers of the insurance premiums on motor vehicles in Barbados. We have theft, but we don't have a lot of theft. We have theft in Barbados, but the accidents, yes, way too high accident claims, way too high ratio of accidents in Barbados. A lot of young people driving very, very carelessly. We see the speeds on the roads. We see the foolishness they do. Some of the public vehicles as well, the foolishness that is being done. We have to try and ensure that we police them better,
I want to go back to something you mentioned about growing the local economy. There's a lot of talk about diversification, moving away from traditional sectors like tourism. Renewable energy is one of the areas that we're looking at.
Right, renewable energy to me is one of the biggest low-hanging fruits in Barbados. And it's like mango season and we're not picking the mangoes, And sadly, this is one of my favorite topics. I have been pushing the government, I have been pushing everybody We need to act much faster than we have been acting. All the investment that we can have, a lot of it is available here in Barbados. A number of applications have gone in. I know that the new minister has promised that action is being taken, that they're addressing this issue. But really and truly, this is 3, 4, 5, 6 years that we've been talking about this. We're supposed to be 2030, not to be 100%. I just can't see that happening.
Yeah, it's just
at this
9 years
rate.
away.
Let's be realistic. We are so far from that, and we're just a few years away now. But a lot can be done. A lot has to be done if we want to get these projects online. And there's a lot of investment. There's a lot of money in the banks. Everybody's talking about all the money in the banking system. Well, let's put it to use. This is one area we can save significant foreign exchange for the country and reducing the hydrocarbon needs of fuel imports. And we have the land. We have the land available in Barbados. I think the government needs to have a strategy around land use policy, because there's no doubt that for major project investment in the renewable energy side, we are going to have to look at some agricultural land, how we cohabitate with our agriculture and renewable energy. Are we going to allow the farms to invest in renewable energy? Are they going to be allowed to use some of their lands to do that? It's not significant. The volume of land is not significant that needs to be converted to co-use or to single-use RE. But we need to do it. We need to move. We need to make decisions, and we need to move on. We have taken way too long as a country to do so.
And agriculture was one of the bright sparks in terms of growth last year. And I know you're still heavily involved with Barbados Farms. Are you satisfied with our level of food production?
No. I would be misleading everyone if I say yes, we are satisfied. We have a long way to go. We need to have a really full agricultural policy. Is it import substitution you want? What are we going to do? Are we going to have people growing carrots and so on, and then people still importing carrots at half the price, and people having to plow back up the carrots or tomatoes or onions or whatever? We need to have a true agricultural policy. What is a country we want to do? I have told people over and over and over, we have enough land in Barbados that can feed this country over and over. It's how we manage that, how we manage the water resources to do proper farming. The cost of farming in Barbados is exceedingly high. Not very well subsidized, Most successful farming countries are very heavily subsidized, and that is a fact. We in Barbados have not been received that. Certainly the sugar industry has received some. We've seen rebates on some agricultural equipment and agricultural side. But still, we have things that farmers need to have better support. We have seen the minister recently giving some support to control the prices and the commodities and so on. And that is a good move, because without that, the cost of living will go even higher at the end. But you can't compete with the global market on pricing. And let's be realistic and honest. But for food security, we have to do better. We have to be able to produce more here, to grow more here, at a competitive price, and to have it available all year round. That all year round is the thing. Because if you have a tourism industry, you have to be able to supply that. And you have to be able to produce enough at the right time to supply that industry. I know now is a lull, obviously, but farmers need that support. I would like to see a much better organized agricultural policy, and a continuing work. I think the ministry is realized that there's a lot of work to be done. They have started, but we have a long way to go. And certainly decisions need to be made on how we're going to if we're going to keep sugarcane as an industry, if we're going to continue to diversify that and have cane fuel, if we're going to use the farms to have biomass energy, are we going to generate electricity? Are we going to, how are we going to do? What are we going to do? But there's been a lot of discussion, Lisa, over the last 5 years. I've been involved in a lot of those meetings and discussions. But it is to make that bold step as a country. What policy do you want to put in place? What is that policy? How are we going to manage that policy in the future?
So from where you sit, should we keep sugarcane?
We should keep sugarcane for certain things, certainly for producing molasses for rum. We certainly need, I don't think we need a huge level of sugarcane, but we need to be able to produce enough molasses for rum. We need to be able to produce enough for sugar for local consumption. But generally speaking, we can look and see what else we can do. Sugarcane is a loss-making exercise. Even if the farmers break even or make a little money now, the government is subsidizing it. So to the country, it is a loss-making exercise. We need to be able to get more efficient. A lot of people have stopped farming in the past because it was very uncertain. The support was untimely. Many times when you got the support, the rainy season had finished, and I mean, it was just very poorly managed, strategically managed by the various governments. And now we need to ensure that the timing of these inputs can be done a lot better so that the yields can be increased, the production volume is increasing. But I don't think we'll ever get back to where we used to be. And the economies of scale are going to make it very difficult to make it a profitable industry.
The Barbados Manufacturers Association is another one of your members. I know during the height of COVID, when it first started, a lot of them started producing, a lot of manufacturers started producing masks, those that make garments. Where are we now in terms of manufacturers and them being able to sustain what they're doing in this climate?
I think manufacturing was one of the areas of our economy that didn't suffer as badly during COVID. Or when I say during COVID, we're still in COVID, but during the lockdown phase, the initial phase, because we were able to produce food stuff. Even some of the manufacturers were able to switch what they were doing to produce sanitizers and so on. But we were able to supply goods outside of Barbados, which was something good for the country because we were generating foreign exchange while still keeping our people employed. But some of the food manufacturers locally, we certainly saw a significant fall off in the poultry and the pork farming and that kind of thing, the demand.
We had a glut.
We had a glut because the demand isn't there.
Yeah.
And that is again the importance of tourism to these people, to the manufacturing and to the farming community. And the ripple effect is significant. So we need to continue to find a different market as well. A lot of the manufacturers, I have seen some of their products, Ribisco products, in some of the markets well north, and I commend them for it, but it's not easy to get in there and break through. But you have to keep at it, and you just got to stick with it. But you have to have a good product as well. And so Ribisco certainly has very good products. But a lot of them are trained, it is a difficult time. A lot of the small manufacturers have fallen by the wayside. Some of the garment people have fallen by the wayside because the demand is in there. And it's been very hard for many of them to survive this fall off in business. So it is a matter of who is more efficient, who can capture, change the model of business to, market and distribute through a regional, through using technology. I think that's a big savior for some of them and will continue to be. I think especially a lot of the small ones need to get out there and use the digital economy, and to be able to push their businesses. But it's a challenge. It's a very competitive world right now. And the cost of doing business in Barbados, as you know, is not cheap. It's quite high. So they're competing in a high-cost enterprise with a low customer base. And that's why they need to go global. We need to expand from 300,000 customers to 300 million, 30 million, 3 million, 30 million, 300 million. And that takes time. It needs the product, you need the use of technology, and you need marketing. And you have to have the support infrastructure to do so. It's going to take a while. That's why I say the young people, I am looking to the younger business people, the innovation, the new thinking, and the demand, the new ways of demand to drive a lot of change that we will see through manufacturing and through services.
The Barbados Private Sector Association is a major stakeholder in the social partnership. Tell me a little bit about your involvement when it comes to making these crucial decisions alongside Labour and the government.
Well, a partnership is supposed to be made up of three parties. Usually it is an equal partnership, hopefully. But the Prime Minister is the head of the social partnership as the Prime Minister of Barbados. Labour and private sector make a valuable contribution to the social partnership. I think we have seen a lot more discussion taking place at the social partnership in the last 3 years than we have seen for a very long time. And we've had to have meetings, a lot of meetings initially because of the situation with the debt and restructuring the debt and then trying to restructure and transform the economy. And I believe that a lot of that was valuable work done by the partnership, that we were able to get where we were at the time. I think at times some of us might feel that we are not all equal partners in the partnership. And that is things that we need to work on as a partner, because any good partnership each person must have their involvement and individual involvement recognized by the other parties. And I think that's a challenge that the partnership will have to try and maintain, that the private sector of Barbados is a valuable player for this country. Our role as an investor and as a private sector has to be recognized and respected. And I'm not asking for beneficial treatment for the private sector. I'm asking for equal treatment, equal recognition in the social partnership. And that's what we try to participate at that level. Because without the private sector making money, making good returns, there will be no growth in this country. Private sector needs to grow the economy through the profits it makes and through the capital it earns. And I hear many Barbadians, sadly, criticizing companies that make money. But those companies make money to reinvest in capital, reinvest in people, and to grow their businesses. Growing their businesses or growing new businesses is how this economy will grow in the future. We need to grow a customer base, grow a business base, and that generates more capital, and as a cycle, you continue doing that. It is not a sin to make money. A businessman is in business to make money. That's what, if not, they will fall out of business and they die. The businesses will collapse. And so it is the priority of the business person to try and generate a profitable return on their investment outside the cost of that capital. So that is what people need to understand. A lot of people in Barbados criticize business people because I don't think they understand what it takes to run a business. It's a risk. It is easy to sit back and criticize business people because you are not taking that risk. A lot of businesses fail, but the diversity of the business places or the businesses that you operate will support failure in one area and success in another area. So that's why some small businesses that are confined to one area, if it fails because of a lack of customer base or a lack of demand, that's why diversity is a key in that business area, in those businesses. But we in the business sector expect to play our part. We are willing to play our part. Give us the opportunity, keep the playing field level, give all of us an opportunity to make a decent return on our investment. And that is certainly the role of the private sector. Provide employment, keep people employed, gainfully employed, try and get the efficiency in our systems and the best return on our investment while keeping people gainfully employed so that they can grow themselves, give them opportunities. And I certainly support allowing people to invest in these entities as well. And that's why I like the companies that I see doing that, allowing their employees to become owners in the companies as well. I think that should be encouraged more and more in the private sector in Barbados. And you see that most of those companies, the employees tend to be very happy and working in those organizations. So I think we need to attract more investors in Barbados. Investment and risk-taking in Barbados is not widely accepted or widely done. We, as Bajans, we have grown up and have been trained not to be risk takers. Mm-hmm. I mean, in all due respects to our forefathers, we were never big risk takers, and I remember when my dad gave up his job and said he was going to run a business for the first time in his life. All of his friends told him he was mad as ever, but he did it. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. He suffered tremendous stress and so on. But I learned a lot from that experience to see what risk is and how you manage risk. And people need to understand that managing risk is a cost. And you need to get a return for that risk. And it is easy to sit back and criticize business people that you're making too much money, you're doing this and doing that. When you don't understand what risks they're taking, where the capital is, how they're paying for that capital, and what returns they need to get to be able to stay in business. And it is a lack of understanding as far. I think we have fallen down in not explaining that as good as we should have in the past. But it is a general feeling, that businesses are greedy, but that's not the case. We all want to make money. We are in business to make money, to keep people employed, to grow our businesses, to grow the economy.
You are co-chair of the BERT Steering Committee. You would have mentioned that you had quite a number of meetings. This is really social partnership regarding the level of debt Barbados was in about 3 years ago. The economy, however, is not performing as it should as a consequence of COVID. Where are we in terms of our obligations to the IMF?
Well, so far we've been meeting the targets. Most of the targets have been met. Certainly, the IMF has been very understanding. We have had some structural benchmarks as well that we have had to meet. We have had some deferral on some, but the actual fiscal targets and the primary targets have all been met in the past. We certainly, the one at June, the IMF was just here and gave the report out. The government has been able to negotiate with the IMF some ease in the program for 2021. And I think you'll see some ease out to the 2035 timeframe, 2033 timeframe that they've allowed them to push out for a couple more years for the debt to GDP ratio. But we have been meeting the IMF targets. The Burt Monitoring Committee meets monthly. We report quarterly, but we meet monthly and go through the reports with the central bank and Dr. Greenwich, who is the advisor. And we are comfortable with where we are as a country on the past. What we are concerned about, obviously, is the future. Where do we grow this economy? How do we sustain not really debt to GDP ratio where it is, but how do we sustain a growth pattern that we need to in order to meet the ultimate targets down the road? It's not just this year you've got to worry about. When you look, we are back I don't know how many years now. We lost $2 billion off the economy, out of the GDP. And we have a long way to go to catch back up. At some time, that debt to GDP is going to hurt us. We got to be growing that economy. It's not the debt that is a worry to me. It's a worry, but it's the GDP that is a worry to me. We have to drive that GDP. That's why I say tourism is the immediate driver. There's no overnight green flash success that's going to happen. We got to stick with tourism for now until we can truly diversify this economy in the long term. You don't diversify an economy in months or a couple of years. That doesn't happen. That's a magic wand. That doesn't happen. We don't have, like Guyana finding oil and becoming whatever in a cup. That's taken 5 years anyhow. This country needs to stick with tourism and ensure that we keep tourists coming to this country. That's why it's important to vaccinate. We need to keep that green rating from the UK. That is the driver of revenue for the government, for all the businesses in Barbados. Is a huge player, and that is how government is going to continue to meet the targets. They're not going to meet the targets if we don't get that revenue back up, because the growth in this economy is very dependent on that revenue stream that we will see. We need to generate other revenue. That's why we need to find other projects and other revenue, different income generating ventures that would help diversify the economy. But that is something we need to work on as a country. Right now, let's focus immediately on that fruit, which is bearing, and don't spoil it, don't destroy it. Let us get tourism back to where it needs to be to keep us going to meet the targets of the IMF. Government has done a great job controlling costs and expenditure. A fantastic job, in my opinion, in the last few years. But COVID hasn't helped them, and they've had to spend a lot of money recently in COVID. They can't sustain that. That's not sustainable if you can't grow the economy. So we need to ensure that, having done that, let's get the result. Don't let's then shoot ourselves in the foot by doing things the wrong way.
Speaking about the future, you have been at the head of the Barbados Private Sector Association at what has been an extremely difficult time. However, I understand that in a few days' time, you will no longer be chairman and you're not standing for re-election.
That's correct. Yeah. Yes, Lisa, I became the chairman back in summer of 2018, just after the government came into office, this new government. And it certainly has been non-stop, as you can imagine, since then. And COVID has not helped in any way at all. But it has been hectic. It's been an experience for me as an individual, working certainly with the government and Labour, certainly, and in many cases, and the social partnership. But the members of the Burt Committee as well, we were working with them on the Burt Monitoring Committee and the central bank officials. Good experience, but it has aged me a bit, Thankfully, I retired from my substantial job at Sagicor last year, and it gave me some more time to focus on the private sector, because it really it was a lot of work. This role in the private sector is quite demanding. There's a lot of stress at times that you're trying to manage the situation with equality and ensure that things are done fairly in the country. There are things that, obviously, leadership, you have to be a leader. You can't be weak and then be in this position. You've got to make some tough decisions. Might not be popular, but as I said, I'm not elected to be popular. You're elected to make some tough decisions that are going to push the private sector along and for the good of Barbados. We are here to help grow this country. And I see it as my job as the chairman of the private sector to ensure that the private sector plays its part with the government and Labour leadership. And it's been a challenge, but very interesting 3 years.
And I'm sure that your members appreciated your chairmanship, Mr. Clarke. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was Mr. Edward Clarke, the outgoing chairman of the Barbados Private Sector Association. I am Lisa Lord. Do have yourself a wonderful evening.